Hey guys, welcome to Reasonover Prod's first interview. I'm interviewing a good friend of mine, Grayson De Ritis. He does a lot of form of entertainment, web and media and photography and video editing. So I'm just going to get right into the interview and let's kick it off with Grayson. Grayson, tell us what you do.
Well, thanks for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast rather. You pretty much covered some of the main basics about what I do, and that's also my day job and then what I do outside of that. I'm passionate about both what I do during the week and what I do outside of that pays the bills. So I think first and foremost you could say that I do web development. And I think I use web development as an umbrella term to include design and the back end of things, and pretty much an all-encompassing term about anything having to do with building and creating things on the web, mainly websites. But that includes graphics too, and things similar to what we're doing right now. Podcasting, anything multimedia related is my passion. And I studied that in college, and even before I got to college. And I'm moving forward with that right now because that's what I enjoy and that's my passion. And as you mentioned too, photography is something I've been doing for 17 going on 18 years now. And that's from back with disposable cameras, 35mm black and white in the darkroom, now to what we're shooting on with today, DSLR, digital photography. And I'm really excited about some projects that are coming up too with streaming, live broadcasting, really taking some of the basic podcasting that I've been doing to the next level.
Cool. I mean, definitely got media marketing, like web down, but how'd you get into all these other different subjects? What transitioned you from A to B with going on a smooth transition?
I originally didn't even start off doing web design. I started off doing Photoshop, just getting a copy of Photoshop and then figuring out what this tool does and what that tool does, and really just growing from there, because I was in a class that you had to become pretty advanced at Photoshop from nothing. So from my first day of having the program to the end of the class in high school, you had to get pretty advanced, and I saw that other people were struggling and getting pretty low grades in the class. So I actually found it to be really fun. So it was a natural thing. I think if you really like something, you don't have to really work as hard at it because you're already naturally passionate about it. So at the same time, I was also taking a photography class, and I've been doing that for years. And so that really opened the door to me getting more interested in video, motion graphics. Animation was big at the time, even though I didn't go down that road. I had friends that were doing that, using Poser, Maya, programs that were really popular back then, popular rendering engines. So I've kind of been always all over the place, and web is something that I stuck with and have really made the mainstay of my career. But what I have equal passion about is everything else multimedia.
Nice. Yeah. Well, with your passion, had you basically, do you follow any specific artist, group of artists, type of person, or anything that gets you thrive for more, or try to replicate, imitate into art?
I go to itsoverprods.com every day.
Lies.
To get my daily source of inspiration.
I just want to say this is the guy who created my website. So it wouldn't be itsoverprods.com without this guy. So
yeah, I look at my own work, I guess. But I think that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of people that are in new media, quote unquote, they don't take maybe enough time to do, is to go out and check out what other people are doing. Because if I look at something that you're doing, I can get excited about it, and I'm not necessarily going to try to replicate that or redo that, and I might not even come back to what I take away from seeing what you do until 6 months later, a year later. But that seed's planted, and I see the way that maybe you're working on something, not necessarily the end product. And that goes with all the other artists that I do check out. I'm I wouldn't say lifelong. I didn't know about this guy my entire life. I would say my adult lifelong interest in Shepard Fairey has sculpted a lot of the ways that I work, and then always looking for new sources of creativity, because I've seen that that's something that he does. And for people that don't know, Shepard Fairey, longtime street artist turned Just, I guess say one of the more popular contemporary artists, but made the famous Obama Hope poster, as well as is now being even more introduced to the mainstream through Exit to the Gift Shop, which was nominated for one of the best documentaries of the year. So in addition to him, it's whoever else I can get my hands on. I'm always looking for people. Michael Mann, like I know that's something that you and I talked about. He does something that I probably won't get into in terms of box office film production and everything, but it's something that I follow closely. And then what he does, I've noticed I started to pick up on certain color tones that he works with, and I bring it into my work. And even though what I do is somewhat different in the medium sense from what he does, it translates well. And then I think going out and finding new sources of inspiration is pretty much critical, because if you're not growing as an artist, you're dying, basically.
Couldn't put it any better than that
Yeah.
way Grayson just said it. Alright, besides Photoshop, I know you do web, like, is everything just completely self-taught and just learn from your mistakes?
I would be comfortable saying everything's self-taught. Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to find with a lot of people that are in new media. We'll just use new media as an umbrella term for photography, web, application building, anything, digitally creative nowadays, I guess you could say, is new media. So I was personally ridiculed, especially in college, by professors. They said that I should become a paper estimator because that was the career path that I was going to have plenty of job security in, and the fact that I was always tinkering around with Dreamweaver or writing code in Notepad or SSHing into a bit of web space that I had to tinker around, or doing graphics specifically for the web and not for print. I was in the 72 DPI world while they're in the 300 DPI world. They're doing CMYK while I was doing RGB, and now I'm one of the only people from my graduating class that has job security and has a flourishing career rather than a career in an industry that's dying away. In paper, newspaper, the print industry is really suffering, and I think I took it upon myself to look hard at what was coming based off of growing trends in 99, 2000, 2001, and it really paid off, because now I'm in an industry where I get to enjoy what I do and pursue my passions, and I'm making a good living at it. And unfortunately, folks that were giving me a hard time back then about going after web are in the struggling print industry now, where I mean every day you hear about these major cuts in newspapers, and they're having to charge a lot more money now, and they're losing customers, and it's a parabolic effect of decay on their industry on the downward side of things. Whereas with web and everything online, mobile, apps, anything for these smart devices that we're having nowadays, what I'm doing can translate into that. So there's more spurs off of that main nucleus of what a web career is about that you can travel down and get involved with, and that's exciting. Yeah.
Grayson De Ritis, besides web, photography, everything, genius. He knows about the print media, he knows all about that, and I'm glad he's a good friend of mine. If there's one thing that you wish you learned, like in classes, on your own, or whatever, what's the newest thing you've learned right now? If you had the time frame to do it.
I would love to know. Well, I guess you could call it programming, but we'll call it web programming. Things like C# for the web, Ruby on Rails, Ajax. That's more web programming, and you could say that it's a different career path than what I do, which is front end development and strategic planning, analytics tracking, things like that. That's more front end, and I have a lot of respect for the guys that do web application development, because it really hinges on that fence of front end and then hardcore straight up offline application coding. So I wish I had gotten a bit more into that when I was first getting into web. But to learn front end, you really have to dive in and dedicate yourself to learning XHTML, CSS, or HTML, but then XHTML that goes back to HTML nowadays, HTML5, and then CSS, learning Photoshop really well, So being able to create a website just by yourself without having to bring in other people. So it's difficult to learn both disciplines, but that's something that I feel could be valuable to my repertoire now. So I'm going to make it a point to try to get at least the basics and learn about the theories, but also video editing. I've been getting really pumped about video editing because I've had to learn that for work, and then you've been teaching me a lot too. So that's good. Yeah.
So basically, just don't get into one thing. Try to jump around.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Whatever you can get your hands on, be greedy. Whatever you can get your hands on. If you have friends or relatives or anybody you know that's into that are into different industries, different disciplines, ask them. Ask questions. Be curious. Even if it's not something you're immediately going to follow as a career path or isn't relevant to what you're doing perhaps that week or that month or that year or that 5-year span, at least network in those disciplines and become familiar with them, because you can really come back to that and at least be fluent in the repertoire and the language of those different disciplines, and you develop a lot of respect for people that have talents in other areas as well. And likewise, respect will be reciprocated, and you get yourself noticed as well.
Definitely. So just jump around. And one major thing that Grayson and I realized in doing photography, video editing, web coding, anything like that, it just doesn't hurt to try. I mean, as long as you practice and you make the effort to learn, you can get anywhere. Look at Grayson, from website to photography to video editing, 95% is self-taught. So give your props.
Hey, likewise, with video. Yeah. Just do it. It's just like Nike says, just do it. And the only thing that can happen is that you're going to get better, and you're going to find out more what you're specifically interested in, and your passion's going to grow. On the other side of that, trying out different things gives you breathing room from what you maybe are focusing on every day. Like for me, photography gives me a break from doing XHTML and CSS or HTML and CSS all day. So, there are other benefits from jumping around from discipline to discipline, other than just learning new skills, but it keeps you fresh, for sure.
Awesome. Besides that, Grayson basically covered everything, and phenomenal guest. If anyone will look you up, where can they visit?
They can find me all over the interwebs. You can go to GraysonDeRitis.com, GraysonDeritis.com. It's my official online portfolio. I also do a lot of work in amateur sports writing at www.6th-round.com. That's 6th-round.com. And I am active on Twitter, so you can find me on Twitter at 6th Round. That's twitter.com/6th-round, and I'm active on there. Please send me a note. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm always open to feedback on the work that I'm doing. So it's been great to be here today, for sure.
Thank you, and check out the next episode. But other than that, thank you for Grayson for visiting, and check out his stuff. Thanks.